All right, today we're diving into something pretty incredible. A single document that's meant to completely reboot a nation of 170 million people. It's called the July Proclamation, and it's basically the blueprint for a revolution.
I mean, just think about that question for a second. How do you actually reboot an entire country? Well, in 2025, Bangladesh put forward a very specific answer. You issue a proclamation, a formal, public declaration that doesn't just explain why the government changed, but tries to build a whole new political reality from the ground up. So what did it say, and why did they feel they had to write it?
Okay, so first things first, what is this thing, this July Proclamation? At its heart, it's the new interim government's official story of what it calls the July Revolution. You can kind of think of it as 3 documents rolled into one. It's part history book, part legal case, and part, a mission statement for where the country is supposed to go from here.
And you gotta understand, this wasn't just some informal memo. Make no mistake, it was announced at the National Parliament building, the very heart of government, by the new head of the interim administration, Muhammad Yunus. Everything about this moment was designed to give the document as much official weight as humanly possible.
Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. Before the proclamation even gets to its vision for the future, it first spends a lot of time building this incredibly detailed case against the past. It's meticulously laying out why, in its view, a revolution wasn't just an option, it was an absolute necessity.
The whole argument starts with this idea of total democratic erosion. The proclamation claims that the nation's original 1972 constitution was flawed from the start, and that these flaws are what allowed the previous government to build what it calls a one-party state. And the proof? It points to 3 elections that it labels farcical, and claims they were used to just systematically gut every single state institution, from the courts to the free press.
And from there, the charges get even more serious. We're moving from political malpractice to what it calls outright criminality. It alleges things like limitless corruption, and then gets into really heavy stuff like disappearances and extrajudicial killings. It uses this incredibly charged language claiming the old government created a fascist mafia state, one that discriminated against its own people for something as basic as a government job.
And this isn't just heated rhetoric, it's a stated goal. The authors are crystal clear. The objective is to make the entire former ruling party irrelevant. And by using that shocking comparison to a Nazi regime, they weren't just trying to be insulting. They were trying to morally and politically disqualify them from having any role in the country's future. Period.
So, after painting that pretty grim picture of the past, the proclamation then zooms right in on the specific events of July 2024. The events, it says, were the breaking point. According to the proclamation, the dam finally broke with student protests over job quotas. But it says the real trigger, the thing that turned a protest into a nationwide mass uprising, was the government's violent crackdown on those students. After that, events moved at lightning speed. By August 5th, you had a long march on the Capitol, the Prime Minister resigned and fled, and just a few days later, an interim government was being formed. It was an absolutely stunning sequence of events.
And this was not a bloodless transition. The proclamation puts a number on the human toll. Nearly 1,000 people killed, including women and children. That figure is absolutely central to the document's entire argument. It's the ultimate justification for the revolution, and it's why it frames those who died as national martyrs.
So after laying out the case against the past and retelling the story of the uprising, the proclamation pivots. It starts making a series of very concrete promises for the future.
And this brings us to its 5 core promises, what it calls a roadmap for a new era. And if you look closely, there's a real logic to the order. It starts by honoring the past, declaring the dead as national heroes. Then it moves to dismantling the old system, reforming the Constitution, and delivering justice for past crimes. And only after all of that is done does it look to the future, by promising to hold fair elections and build a better economy.
And this isn't just some political wish list. The document states a very clear intention. This proclamation is meant to be formally written into a new, reformed constitution. The goal is to make these principles and the memory of the July Revolution itself a permanent part of Bangladesh's legal and political DNA.
So, you have this powerful document with a grand vision, But look, a proclamation is one thing. Getting an entire country to actually agree on it, that's another challenge altogether. So what was the immediate reaction?
Well, the reaction pretty much immediately exposed the country's political fault lines. You had major groups like the Bangladesh Nationalist Party welcoming it and offering support. But then another key party, the Bengali Jamaat-e-Islami, was critical, saying it did not reflect the aspirations of July. That split reveals the fundamental challenge here. Even the people who agreed a revolution was necessary couldn't immediately agree on the blueprint for what should come next.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question. The July Proclamation is a powerful statement of intent. It's a promise, written right after a revolution. It lays out a clear diagnosis of the past and a bold vision for the future. But turning those words into a lasting reality that an entire nation can agree on, that is the true test of any revolution. Thanks for joining The Explainer.